in Arlington that aren't being full. I mean, it's out there and there's still a ton of appointments open.
Oh yeah, 100%. Even down in Thurston County.
Hey guys, isn't it 5 o'clock?
Yep, and we
All
are
right.
on channel 21.
Are we?
Yes.
Okay, great. It is 5 o'clock. I am calling this meeting to order. And let's see, we have myself, Huang Tran. We have committee member Linda Kochma, committee member Leandra Kraft, council president Honda, council member Lydia Sefer Dawson. I hope I say your name right. And council member Ray Baruso. Did I miss any council members?
You got my name right, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. I just afraid when I say the name wrong.
You're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is public comments. Jennifer, do we have any public comments?
There are no public comments. Sorry, there are no public comments.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, we are moving to committee business. The first item is approval of summary minutes for February 23rd, 2021.
If there are no comments, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes dated February 23rd, 2021. Is there any discussion, questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and the matter passed 3-0. Moving on to second item, Federal Way Community Center hot water tank replacement RFB. And I believe Brian, Autumn will be presented. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Tran, Council President Honda, and Council Committee members. Thank you for your time this evening. Our item on the agenda today and the policy question is, should the City Council approve staff to request bids for the Federal Way Community Center water heater tank replacements? A little background on this is that last April, one of the 3 water heaters at the community center went out, obviously being closed for COVID, and the pandemic has brought us to this point. We are asking to go out for requests for bids because they do need to be replaced to bring us back up to capacity for our reopening dates. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Committee members, do you have any questions? Or any council members?
I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
How long do you expect the water heaters to last?
Currently, under the capacity that we have with just the 2 water heaters, we would be okay limping along, to be honest. But once we open back up, which will be here shortly, and we open up the community showers, it will be a quick matter of time before we run out of capacity to be able to provide the service to our patrons.
But my question is, how long will the actual water heater last? Like 10 years? Is it anticipated 7-10 years? The replacement ones, yes.
I am happy to find an answer to that question. I don't currently have an estimated timeline on how long the new water heater should last. That's something that we've asked for in our RFB.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Baruso.
Thank you, Chair Tran. Hi, Adam. I just had a question, and it goes along on the equipment again. So, have we ever looked into, and I don't know if it's possible to change out those water heaters one day, maybe do a replacement or for a reserve one for the on-demand ones at all that can keep up? You know?
I will let Leaf answer this question since he's had a little bit more detail with that one. Leaf?
Hi, good evening, Council and Council President Honda. So we are looking into that. We had companies, when the water heater first went down, we had companies come out, take a look at our current redundant system, and that was one of the tanks that they recommended to us. It was an on-demand, but with a tank reserve.
Okay. I just wondering if, because I know those commercial size water heaters. So I know that they do make some commercial size on-demand ones now. So I'm just kind of wondering, if we look forward to that, and if one day maybe we change those out to those. But that was a question. Thank you.
Yep.
I have another question, if it's okay.
Yes, go ahead, please.
What is the cost?
The current cost, we don't know, but it should be in the neighborhoods of between $30,000 and $35,000. The bids that we received, or the quotes, were around $32,000.
Thank you.
Autumn, I do have a questions. So you mentioned that one of the three tanks went bad. Are we replacing just one, or are we going to replace all three of them?
Our request is to replace all three of them to bring the efficiency up and have all three to the same standard.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions? Oh, committee members, Coach Ma, please go ahead.
Thank you. So this is telling me that this amount of money was replacement funds were in the budget, is what this is telling me, correct?
Correct.
Right. So the money isn't the real issue because it's already been included for replacement. We put that money away each year for replacement funds in our budget. So I'm assuming that this would include installation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Committee members, Kraft, I saw your hand earlier. You still have questions?
It was the same question as Council Member Coach Mar, that this was already budgeted for, even at the higher end for the request for bids. Is that correct, Leif? Great. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, seeing there's no other questions, I move to forward the proposed request for bids. I move to forward the proposed request for bids for the Federal Community Center water heater tank replacement to the April 6, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
Okay.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, great. We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion or questions?
I have one other question.
Go ahead.
We're just moving the proposed request for bids, but wouldn't we want to say to award it to the lowest bidder?
We will come back to council once we receive all of the bids.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So, okay, so we have motion and a second and follow-up questions. Is there any other questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 3-0. Thank you, Autumn.
Thank you.
We are moving to item C, King County COVID-19 pandemic funding for the PAC.
Thank you, Chair Tran. I'll be presenting on this one as well. As you mentioned, King County COVID-19 pandemic funding for the PAC. The policy question today is, should the City Council accept the $25,000 funding from King County for COVID-19 pandemic relief for the Performing Arts and Events Center? We received a letter that was included in the packet, and a little background is that King County has set aside within their 2021 funding $25,000 specifically for the Performing Arts and Events Center as a relief grant. At this point in time, we do anticipate that in Q2 they will be looking to pay that out. So we are coming to committee today to ask to receive those funds.
Thank you. I see committee members. Coach Ma has a question. Go ahead.
So I'm, 25,000 is coming from King County. I would assume that would be under phase 2, unless that's something that the county, I would assume that would have been, because it said COVID pandemic relief. I'm assuming that's from phase 2 or the second stimulus package. The third stimulus package should have quite a bit of money in it, shouldn't it, for the arts?
This relief funding is completely separate from a stimulus package. This is part of King County's general budget that they set at the end of last year. But correct, the stimulus package would have additional funding for the arts. They are two separate things.
Oh, okay. Do we have a specific thing that we're using the 25,000 for?
It will go directly towards operations for the Performing Arts and Event Center managed by Spectra Venue Management. Brian is on the line. I'm happy to bring him in if he has some more specific answers in regards to where the $25,000 will be allotted. Brian?
Yeah, we don't have all 25,000 allocated. As Autumn said, it's goes towards the operating budget, but we are going to set aside monies for the Arts for Youth program. That obviously went away, and we don't know when that will start back up. So a portion of that will go to help our Arts for Youth program.
Okay. Thank you.
Council President Honda.
Thank you. So Brian, can you be more specific as to where the $25,000 is going to be spent? And I like that there would be money put away for the Arts and Youth program, but I don't see that happening in the really near future. And $25,000, well, it's a very nice gift from King County. It isn't that much money when you consider how much money we've lost on the PAC not being open for the past year. So, can you be any more specific on where this money would go?
We don't have the money yet, so we didn't plan the all 25,000. So, but as I said, a portion for the Arts for Youth program. We have thought about putting some of it into a show fund to attract some regional and local artists to cover some of those production costs that will help and minimize the expenses in that regards, as well as if there are additional needs when we are able to reopen, that for a touchless scanner for our ticketing and some of those other operational needs that may not have been covered with stimulus packages or other funding that was available.
Do you have any idea when you might open for limited seating?
We don't. We're shooting for possibly May timeframe to have audience members back into the facility. But we have a handful of other things that are going on and shifting. To see exactly when, but our goal is possibly in May to have fans back in to and watch a live performance. We have had a handful items and groups that have been in the facility, whether they're rehearsing or taping for live streaming events. So we have been able to generate some revenue while we've been down, just unfortunately no live audience.
Okay, thank you very much.
Committee members, Coach Mar.
Thank you, Chair Tran. Autumn, are you going to be filling out the paperwork for the acceptance?
They're similar to the $100,000 that King County had set aside for the Performing Arts and Events Center in 2018 for signage funding. There wasn't specific paperwork that came along with the funding that they were providing, but I'm happy to look into it and let you know if there's any further paperwork.
Well, the only reason I believe that is because the letter from Pete Von Reitbauer says it is important that you or somebody designate official point of contact and fill out the necessary paperwork as quickly as possible.
So we've been We've been given no paperwork or further detail at this point in time, but to answer your question, yes, if there was paperwork to come down the line, myself and Brian will work on it together.
So you'll be contacting Tyler Pritchett then, his chief of staff.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Oh, by the way, tell him thank you for the grant from us. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other questions, may I have the motion, please?
I move to forward the proposed acceptance of the $25,000 funding from King County for COVID-19 pandemic relief funding for the Performing Arts and Events Center to the April 6, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any objection? Nope. All right. Thank you, Autumn and
Thank
Brian.
you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, we are moving to item D, AP vouchers 2/16/2021 to March 15, 2021, and payroll voucher from the 1st of February 2021 to February 28 of 2021.
Good evening,
And
Council Chair. Oh, excuse me.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Good evening, Council Chair Tran, Council President Honda, and Council Committee members. Ade Arawula, our Finance Director, is out of town and returns on March 29th. Before you are the AP vouchers from 2/16/21 to 3/15 and the payroll vouchers in the amount of $1,990,833.62 and payroll vouchers in the amount of $3,606,008.02. Council President Honda, I did receive your questions, and I can answer them here in this meeting really quickly if you would like, so that each of you could hear what those questions were and go over those. So I'll start on some of those questions. The first question was check number 276553, Federal Way Community Center refund, canceled PGM 431 for $3,199. And that was a senior trip that was canceled to Iceland. And so we were refunding that customer that money that they had paid for that trip. The second question was on page 1 of the vouchers, check number 276578 for Sound Publishing. And it had the description MO-80 for advertising for $3,395. This was state of the city ads as well as kids design ads for the for Sound Publishing. The third question was also under the section which is titled advertising. There are several Facebook ad listed. What is advertised on Facebook? And so I did pull those invoices as well, and those are primarily Facebook ads advertising the Federal Way Community Center reopening and classes occurring at the Federal Way Community Center, as well as the recycling event that occurred for Solid Waste and Recycling Division of the Public Works Department. Question 4 was on page 3, check number 276.
Chase?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the mayor advertises extensively in the Federal Way Mirror. Why it would not SWIM or the Federal Way Community Center, do they advertise extensively in the Mirror also for their upcoming events? And or is Facebook a better way to get the word out to people?
I don't have that answer. Is Autumn or Leaf still on the line, or did they drop off? I don't see them on the line anymore, but I can follow up with them and see if they do advertise in the Mirror as well. I think what I've seen within these vouchers was that they've advertised on Facebook, but I do not know if they also advertise in the Mirror. But it
would just be interesting for council to know what the best way to reach people, because we're always trying to reach people with what we're doing. So if Facebook is better than the Mirror, in order to reach our community, it would be interesting for us to know that information. So, thank you. Didn't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm writing that question down for them so that we can follow up and make sure to get you an answer. So the fourth one was on page 3, check number 276447, Parks, Federal Way Community Center and PKM members renewal for $840. And your question was, why would it be paid 3 times? What this is 3 different account numbers. And so there's a Parks Maintenance Division, a Federal Way Community Center Division, and a Parks Recreation Division of the Parks Department. And these are employees in all 3 of those divisions paying for membership renewal. 5th question was page 9, check number 276292, AHBL Incorporated CD for evaluation of land. You had mentioned there are 2 of these listed. What is it for? This is third-party review of projects at the former Warehouser property. So we have a third-party reviewer for a project that's occurring there. The 6th question was on page 18, check number 219214759, and it says MOED-annual hosting for $810. This is the hosting of the site visitfederalway.org for economic development. And then the last question was on page 22, check number 219214719, MOED database for $600. And this is subscription to commercial retail space, officespace.com, which advertises the commercial retail space within the city. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you may have on any of the vouchers.
Thank you. I appreciate you answering those.
Yeah.
Thank you, Council President, for asking those questions, and thank you, Chase, for providing the answer. Appreciate it. Is there any other questions? Seeing none?
Chair Tran, I move
Yes.
to forward the vouchers to the April 6, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The matter passed 3-0. We are moving on to the last item. Wow, this is a really short meeting. Item E, monthly financial report, February 2021. Chase?
Yeah, good evening, Council Chair Tran, Council President Honda, and Council Committee members and public. Before you is the February 2021 monthly financial report. And I'm going to share my screen and go through some of the notable areas to share with you on the report. So can you see the report on my right screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll start out with sales tax. Sales tax is 0.02 million or 20,000 or 1.2 above 2021 year-to-date budget, but about 30,000 or 1.7% below 2020 year-to-date collections. I'm going to jump real quick to page 100 and 101 to show you where we kind of lay out the sales tax data. So this table, we take comparison of 2021 budget versus actual on a year-to-date basis, as well as a comparison to 2020 actuals for each of the individual months. And then if you scroll down a little bit, we have it by major categories and then by major locations. So it appears that the South 348th retail block is holding steady as far as for our sales tax collections, but we're about on target because, like I mentioned, we're about 30,000 below 2020, but about 20,000 above our year-to-date budget. So 1,584,000, we've received 1,604,000. So sales tax is holding steady. And I'm going to kind of jump back to the front page and then jump forward so that we can see where it's also reported in different spots within the report. So I'm going to jump back to page 96. So I'm on page 96 of the monthly financial report. Community development permits and fees is 0.4 million or 102.3 above 2021 year-to-date budget and 0.4 million or 120.1 above 2020 year-to-date collections. And again, I'm going to jump a little forward to show you that there's a comparison table that looks at our community development permits and fees. So on page 103, we have a separate table that outlines each of the months that we receive community development permits and fees. So for January, we are above 2020. We are above year-to-date budget. Again, for February, same thing. So when I said we are above by 402,000, that's the change from 2020, but by 373,000 change from 2021 year-to-date budget. And then there's a comparison by month for 2020 actuals. The main reason that I saw that we're above is one large permit/review fee was for Redondo Heights Senior Living Facility. And so we received some large permit fees in the first 2 months compared to the prior year. Now I'm going to jump back to page 96 again, which is the first page. Business license fees are $13,000 or 12.7% below 2021 year-to-date budget and $71,000 or 43.8% below 2020 year-to-date collections. Business licensing fees are received based on the state anniversary date. We switched to the state back in October of 2019. And so revenue is going to grow more evenly throughout the year versus receiving a large lump sum at the beginning of the year. Each of our business licenses used to expire as of 12/31. Now they expire based on the state anniversary date. And so we'll see a more even collection of our business licensing fees, and they'll grow more evenly. We do also have a database from the state based on businesses that might have a state license that don't have a federal way license, and we have sent out letters on those a few times, and we are seeing that pay off as far as revenue collection. I'm going to scroll down on this page a little bit. Parks and general recreation fees are below 2021 year-to-date budget by $136,000 or 78.3%, and $53,000 or 58.4% below 2020 year-to-date actuals. This primarily has to do with a lot of the activities being closed due to COVID-19. And things are starting to open back up. Like the Federal Way Community Center, my understanding, opened up on a limited basis starting January 18th. Of 2021. So we're starting to see things open up and see revenue collection come back up. On page 98, this is a summary of the general and street fund. So those are where most of our revenues and most of our major departments reside. The expenditures are below year-to-date budget by $998,000 or 14%. Some of this has to do with COVID-19 closures, as well as filling of vacant positions. This negative $100,000, it looks odd, so I want to point it out. And I have a note down below here. It says the Human Resources City Clerk expenditure of negative $100,000 is primarily due to accrued expenditures from King County election invoices that have not been paid. So we accrue our expenditures back to the year that the expense service was provided, which the service was provided in 2020. We're still waiting on that invoice. So when we reverse the accrual, it shows a negative until we actually pay the invoice, and then you'll see that negative amount go away. So I would expect in the next report for that amount to resolve itself, and you should not see that. I want to also point out this miscellaneous other seizure funds grants. That's a negative $268, $818. It's very similar to what I just explained. It's due to accrued revenue from billings for police grants and other local grants that have not been paid as of February 28, 2021. So we reverse the accrual, it makes a negative. And then until we receive the money, that negative won't go away. And I would expect, based on the next report or the report after that, that should go away. Sometimes it just takes time to receive money from the granting agency, but it is, if we bill for it, it's because we have a contract for it, and therefore we're expected to receive that funding. I'm now going to jump to page 97, which kind of explains some of our other funds. So I'll start off with utility tax revenues. The utility tax revenues received year to date, as reported on the report, is 1.4 million and is 0.4 million or 40.2% above 2020 year-to-date actual, and 140,000 or 10.8% above 2021 year-to-date budget. There's also a comparison of each of the revenue sources compared to 2020 down here. And if you look at pages 101 and 102, which I'll go to real quickly, at the bottom of 101, this is very similar to the other year-to-date actual reports that you've seen on the other revenue sources. And this kind of does a comparison of year-to-date budget versus actual and comparison to 2020 actual by each individual month for utility tax. So if you ever have a question about where those totals come from, this is the table. And then a little further down, here's the comparison of each of the major utility types: electric, gas, water, sewer, solid waste. Water, sewer, we show an amount 20 and 21, but not 2020 because we hadn't received the water sewer by February of last year. We didn't receive that until later in the year. So it will look like it's above for a couple months, and then we'll see that amount come back as we get into that year-to-date month that we received the large portion of water. Solid waste is above because the tax rate changed from the 7.75% to the 17.75%. And again, that's very similar why the 2020 is lower than the 2021 actual. So utility tax is doing well and is meeting the budget projections. I will jump back up to the page where we summarize on page 97. Jail, we had talked about during the adopted budget process that we were going to move the jail revenues and expenditures into its own fund. We did do that. So when jail used to show up under the general and street fund summary that I talked about previously, now it shows up under this designated funds. So it's a separate fund. It's not included in the general fund, and we are tracking it separately. It's under the year-to-date budget by 0.4 million or 72.3%, primarily due to having lower average daily population inmates. The actual ADP for January was 21.9 and 20.2 for February. Federal Way Community Center 2021 year-to-date revenues of 71,000 is below 2021 year-to-date budget by 258,000 and below 2020 year-to-date actual by 200,000 or 76.9%. Expenditures are also below, and the fund balance within the fund of 1.5 million meets the required reserve fund balance policy of 1.5. The facility has been closed for many months due to COVID-19, and like I said, just reopened January 18th. Of 2021, and it is providing limited services. There also, I just wanted to point out that there is a separate table down on page 106 where we do a comparison of each of the major revenue sources within the Federal Way Community Center Fund, as well as the expenditures and then the ending fund balance for the fund. And so this 1.5 million here is a required reserve fund balance policy set by council, and the fund is meeting that reserve policy currently. Like Ade said at the previous meeting, during a budget adjustment, it's possible that we may have to fund this at a larger amount, depending on how much reopens and how much revenue we receive. And so he had commented on that when we were looking at the general fund ending fund balance at the end of 2020. Lastly, on page 109, which is the end of the report, this is a summary of each of the individual funds within the city. We had talked about the general and street fund. The ending fund balance as of 2/28/2021 is $9,570,917. The required reserve fund balance policy set by council is 9.5. I did want to point out, here's the jail fund that I was talking about. It's fund number 122. And we just are transferring money into that fund to pay for the expense of jail. And so we had spent $152,568. There is also a separate jail comparison table up on page, I had skipped this and I meant to talk about it, but up on page 104 that compares multiple years. So it has 2018 annual actual, 2019 annual actual, 2020 annual actual, and then the year-to-date actual of what we spent so far. And so as you can see, we used to spend quite a bit more on SCORE jail services compared to what we're spending now. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have on the February 2021 monthly financial report.
Great. Thank you, Chase.
I'll stop share. Okay.
I see Council President Honda have a questions. And then after that, committee members, Kochma. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for being here with us, Chase. On the community development department with the building permit increases, when Sound Transit applies for their building permits, are they treated the same as other building permits? They have to pay them at the same time, or do they have any special agreement with the city as to when they pay their building permits? Do you know anything about that and how that'll impact our budget?
I will have to follow up on that. I believe that there is a separate contract where we do bill for some of the fees that they owe to the city. But I will have to follow up to get more detail from Public Works and Community Development on exactly how that is working, as well as Ryan Medlin, who's managing those contracts. And so we can follow up with that question.
Because we should be seeing those coming in pretty soon, correct?
Yeah, with the project starting, I would assume that some of those fees should be coming in soon. But I'll have to check with them on the exact schedule of each of those fees.
And another question I have isn't on the information you presented today, but with the American Rescue Plan, does the city know how much funding we will get? And will the city council be involved in how that is spent?
I don't have the exact amount at this time. I don't know if that's guaranteed.
I have some information.
Okay.
Right now, it's the Treasury has kind of pseudo numbers. They haven't given us final numbers, but right now it's looking like 18 million.
Okay.
18 million, like 18.3 or something like that. Obviously, to spend that kind of money, we have to come to council for authority to spend that kind of money. So the normal spending guidelines are in place. So the mayor could spend it, things under $20,000, but anything over 20 grand has to come to council. So we will be, right now, staff is kind of scrambling to kind of figure out what the proposal should be to present to council. As Ade and Chase have pointed out in the past, there are some pretty big holes in our budget, and we are allowed to use this money expressly to make up lost revenue. Mm-hmm. So I think part of it will be proposed to use for that purpose, but there's all kinds of social services that everybody wants a piece of it. So we're kind of trying to figure out what the proposal should be. So yes, the short answer, that's a long-winded way of saying yes, we have to come to council to spend this money.
Okay. I hope that we get to be part of the planning, because that's something we'll probably never see again. And yeah. I know there's a lot of needs, and I know the city has.
I would encourage. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
I just, from a process perspective, like these committees are really the only time we get input from council before we bring the final plan to council. So it would be a good idea for individual council members to reach out to the mayor if you have a specific idea of how this money should be spent, we'd love to hear it. Right now, I know that and this is just very preliminary, we've heard at public comments from seniors, we've heard comments from grocery workers. We've heard rent. People worried about not being able to pay their rent, and we've heard about childcare issues. So those are the main things we've been looking at. And then, of course, Tim is always concerned about businesses. So those are the main ones that we're kind of that we are aware of. But more input, the better.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Committee member Kochma, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Tran. So Council President Honda asked the question I was going to ask, which was about the third stimulus package. And I think pretty soon we're going to have a fourth stimulus package that's going to go for infrastructure. So I think there may be guidelines, for example, that I think some of that money is supposed to go for our first responders, I believe. I'm pretty sure, part of it to go for our debt, which I think would be a wise thing to do. And also, I think it's very important for us to help our businesses and for rent reduction, as well as rent payments, as well as we can't forget the people, the mortgage holders, because, that we should have some kind of a way to make sure that that money goes to pay for the mortgage itself. So I think that there should be guidelines in place as well as that goes. I mean, I'm all for it, reducing, helping people with their rent, but I want to make sure that it does go to the mortgage holder. So at any rate, with the fourth stimulus package, I know that some of it's supposed to be for bridges, and I would just hope that we, like with our 324th bridge that we're talking about, the proposal, and then also the 320th bridge that goes over I-5 to Pisa Canyon, that's so inadequate. It's just totally crowded when we have, whenever we're back to peak hour and we're all working again. So I hope that we look at that for the fourth stimulus. But it would be really good to know, to hear back from our lobbyists, where we are on all of these things with regard to the stimulus packages, and also with things that are not in the stimulus package. Anyway, that's my input. Thank you very much.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Anyone? If not, I have a motion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Leandra, do you want to make the motion?
Sure. I move to forward the February 2021 monthly financial report to the April 6, 2021 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have motion and a second. Do we have any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 3-0. And that concludes our meetings for today. Our next meeting, it is going to be on April 27, 2021 at 5 o'clock. And I would assume by that time, we still have to be on Zoom. All right. The meeting is done.
Good job.
Thank you. Good job.
You made it, Councilmember Burr. So thank you, Chase.
I did. Perfect. Right on the button.
See y'all.
Thank you, Chase.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
Take care.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.